Hey there, thanks for stopping by. I hope you're having a good day. Do you want to practice drawing some birds with me? Yeah? If so, stick around because that's what we're doing. Let's crack out the colouring pencils for this little art noodle. For reference, I'm using a pack of Prismacolors. So there are a lot of birds in the world, and in order to ensure this video isn't crazy long, because I don't know whether it's the same for you, but colouring takes me a very long time, we are using the theme of primary colours. Yep, I found a picture of a reddish bird, a bluish bird and a yellowy bird, and all the photos are free reference images from Unsplash, so I'll link them in the description in case you'd like to draw along with me. In order to speed things up a little, and because I'm focusing on practicing colours in this video, I decided to trace the outline of the birds from the photos. Tracing is a great way to start finding your way around a subject with the pressure off. So if it helps you while you are learning, I say go for it. If you'd like me to make a video in future though about how I'd go about freehand drawing these birds, let me know. I'm starting with the reddish bird. I'm picking out the most obvious tones, the reds, but then also looking closely at the image to see what other colours I can spot, such as yellows, oranges and browns. My plan is to start lightly, mingling hues to build up the colour gradually. Now let's throw in my disclaimer right at the start. I am not an expert coloured penciler. I am learning as I go, and there are plenty of videos out there which can show you the expert way of doing things. This video, however, is simply an encouragement from me to you to trust your gut, to let yourself play, and to not worry too much about finding the right colour right away. As we go along, you'll see I'm not aiming for spot-on photorealism here. I know I'm not there in my skills yet. What I am aiming for is a near enough feeling of getting something of that essence of the colours. I realise that is a rather rambly sentence, but what I mean is that for this exercise, all I'm looking to explore is what colours might be in this image. What are the possibilities? When we look at this bird, on the surface of it, and when someone asks us to describe it, we'd probably say it's a red bird, but it's not just red, is it? It's a mingling of colours which band together to create a particular version of reddishness. And this colouring pencil playtime is all about figuring out which colours we can throw together into this mixing pot to create something similar. I started with the lighter colours. The breast of the bird looks to me like it has an orangey glow to it, so I figured an underlaying of yellowy tones could perhaps help me to create that subtle shine later. For the first layers of pencil, I used either the side of the pencil to get a rough coverage or light scribbly movements. At this point, I just want to get some colour onto the page and to start feeling out where the lighter and the darker areas are. Once my first layer of yellow was down, I chose a light orange and started layering it gently over the top. From this point, I start to pay a bit more attention to the direction of my pencil strokes. Even though they are still quite scribbly at this early stage, I tried to ensure that the marks were generally going in the direction of the feathers of the bird. There is a part of this bird around its beak which is very dark, and although I could have gone straight in with a dark brown or a black, I decided to layer it first with a deep red. I thought this could be a less distracting placeholder while I was building up the other areas, and would perhaps lend some depth to the darker colours added later. I used this same colour lightly as an undertone for the wing, which was a more shadowed area, and also very lightly across other areas to start tying them together. As darker colours start coming in, or I started pressing harder with the pencil, I became more focused with the marks I was making. building up singular strokes together to hopefully echo feathery textures. I kept checking back with the photo to identify the shadows and the highlights, and gradually deepened some areas while leaving others lighter. If you're practicing building colours from a reference image like this, the key is to keep looking at that image. Don't forget to use it. I have to remind myself of this constantly. I recognise that often I'll do my looking at the photo at the start, but then I can get too absorbed in my artwork and I'll forget to refer back to the image again later. Eventually, my memory starts to fill in the blanks subconsciously, and I think that I'm flying along. But my memory is not necessarily correct. Checking back in with the image regularly reminds me to keep observing. If you're trying to learn from realism or aiming for it in an artwork, reference images or objects are so important. But always remember that for colour play in general, you can do what the heck you like. If I simply wanted to make these birds any colour I liked, I could let my inspiration take over and leave the reference image behind. And that would simply be a different kind of wonderful creative learning experience. Both kinds are useful to try, and there are no wrong answers. Colouring always feels like it takes me a long time, and in the early stages of building up layers like this, it often seems a bit ugly. I often feel like I've never quite finished a colouring piece, even when I've spent ages on it. I had a time limit on how long I could spend on these, and I roughly spent an hour on each. This means I didn't really go into blending much. I did overlay lighter colours back on top of the darker colours as I was going along, so that kind of blended things in. But I can still see that there is more I could do in each one to develop the colours more. But I learned a lot even so. Not every art practice needs to be finished to be helpful. Do you agree? For a long time it felt like this bird was going to just be orangey, but I kept reminding myself that I was still moving. Red was coming, and eventually it did. I think that this is what strikes me most about colouring pencils, that the colours you want to create are found right at the end of the colouring, and are rarely the singular ones that you started with in the pencils themselves. And so on we go to the yellowy bird. I love yellow tones, so this little bird made me very happy. By the way, if anyone knows which types of birds any of these are, do share in the comments. This one had some whitish areas to bear in mind, and for some reason I always find that a bit tricky. I find it hard to work around an area, trying to let the paper keep showing through. I started with a very pale yellow and then alternated between layering it with different yellows and greens. Getting to press heavier with that brightest yellow though felt very jolly. I love the combination of the greens and yellows in this one. The variation of the greens really let me explore shading in a more interesting way than simply resorting to greys and blacks. The colours of the underbelly of this bird were tricky for me at first, but once I started using this neutral hue alongside some of the greens and greys, it began to come together. Lastly, we have the bluey bird, and for me this was the hardest one. I couldn't quite figure out how to get that particular type of blue that this turned out to be. It felt dusky, a little muted, and yet still vibrant, and all of my pencils felt too bright for it. I tried layering in some purple tones, and while I don't think they were quite right if I were trying to match the photo, I really enjoyed how they mingled together. I didn't worry too much about getting the markings exact. This bird has some very fun feathers going on at the back, but I didn't have time to get them perfect, and they don't need to be. Sadly, my camera battery gave up too soon and the end of this little blue bird was not captured. But all I really added was the black details and a bit more blue and purple layering. And so I ended up with quite a nice sheet of birdies, and to tie them together I had a little bit of a relaxed doodle, letting my pencil wander over the page to create organic forms. I mean, this is just a fun thing to do in itself, but I think it finished off the page nicely. So there we have it, them's me birds. What do you think? Let me know if you are a coloured pencil pro or no. What do you like best about them? Or what do you find challenging? Thanks so much for watching this video. If you're still here, you must have liked some of it, surely. If so, please do consider hitting the like button, as it is free to do and it really does help me out. If you'd like to see more coloured pencil videos or more bird drawing videos, let me know. Keep making happy, and I'll see you next time.